Hello and welcome to this. I'm almost tempted to call this a third look. We're worrying about definitions of what we call these things. So I might call this a third look exploring session looking at The Old Wives' Tale by George Peele. It's an incredibly short play. We love it. We've done it. We've done a first and a second look, which is why I get a bit confused about what we should call this. But this session has a very specific concern in terms of we are trying to figure out questions of adaptation for the text, as well as sort of drilling down into the text again, reminding ourselves how it functions. We're looking at adaptation for an audio adaptation. Which would be live performed as well. So we have a whole series of doubling issues and practical issues, as well as additional elements of the text that we might need to add to, because for once, this is a play we don't need to cut. It's really short. We're not going to cut a word if we can avoid it. Whereas with some plays it's going, this is too long, we need to trim it back. Whereas here it is already of a suitable length, and that makes our life much easier. So we get to play around with it a bit more. So to assist in this task, we have in the room, who do we have? We have Olga, we have Eric, we have Tom, we have Desna, we have Liza, and we have Anna Rose. Hello everyone, I am Robert, and I say I will hopefully keep everything moving forward. So this is a play within a story kind of setup, or is this a story within a play within it's very meta. We have three lost chaps at the top of the play, and that sets the scene, and they will encounter two people who live in the woods with their dog. And that's where we go. So just to get everything sort of ticking over, we'll just start. So I'll ask Liza if you could read Antic for this bit, Olga if you could read Frolic, and Desna if I could ask you to read Fantastic. And I'll throw additional bits to people in a moment. So let's just enter Antic, Frolic, and Fantastic.
Now, fellow Frolic, what? All a mort? Doth this sadness become thy madness? What though we have lost our way in the woods, yet never hang the head as though thou hadst no hope to live till tomorrow, for Fantastic and I will warrant thy life tonight for 20 in the 100.
Antique and fantastic, as I am frolic, Franian, never in all my life was I so dead slain. What, to lose our way in the wood without either fire or candle, so uncomfortable. O Colum, O Terra, O Maria, O Neptune.
And makest thou it so strange, seeing Cupid hath led our young master to the fair lady, and she is the only saint that he hath sworn to serve?
What resteth then but to commit him to his wench, and each of us take his stand up in a tree, and sign out our ill fortune to the tune of "O man in desperation."
Desperately spoken, fellow Frolic, in the dark. But seeing as it falls out thus, let us rehearse the old proverb. 3 merry men, and 3 merry men, and 3 merry men be we. I in the wood, and thou on the ground, and Jack sleeps in a tree.
Ash, a dog in the wood or a wooden dog? Oh, comfortable hearing. I had even as lief the chamberlain of the White Horse had called me up to bed.
Either has this trotting cur gone out of his circuit, or else we are near some village, which should not be far off, for I perceive the glimmering of a glow-worn a candle or a cat's eye. My life for a halfpenny.
And enter Clunch, a smith. And I'll ask Anna Rose, could you be Clunch, a smith, with a lantern and candle?
In the name of my own father, be thou ox or ass that appearest, tell us what thou art.
What am I? Why, I am Clunch the smith. What are you? What make you in my territories at this time of the night?
What do we make, dost thou ask? Why, we make faces for fear, such as if thy mortal eyes could behold would make thee water the long seams of thy side slops, in faith, Smith.
And in faith, sir, unless your hospitality do relieve us, we are like to wander with a sorrowful hey-ho among the olads and hobgoblins of the forest. Good Vulcan, for Cupid's sake, that hath cozened us all, befriend us as thou mayst, and command us, howsoever, wheresoever, whensoever, in whatsoever, forever and ever.
Well, masters, it seems to me you have lost your way in the wood. In consideration whereof, if you will go with Clunch to his cottage, you shall have house room and a good fire to sit by, although we have no bedding to put you in.
Oh, blessed Smith!
Blessed Smith!
Oh, bountiful Clunch!
Clunch!
For your further entertainment, it shall be as it may be, so and so.
Ow, 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 ow.
Hark, this is Ball, my dog, that bids you all welcome in his own language. Come, take heed for stumbling on the threshold. Open door, Madge, take in guests.
And there will pause. There's a lot of fun here already. There is also there is something about the way Antic, Frolic, and Fantastic sort of are throwing references around at the beginning that is a little alienating at times as well. It's they're very well educated. They know their Terrence, but I'm not sure how much the audience will. I also wonder about the dog in the wood or a wooden dog moment as well, which slightly threw me for a moment as to what that was referring to. Are they? Is that another dog barking moment without a stage direction, or is that a reference to something that we're missing? Are we hearing our Ball the dog earlier than we've got currently?
I think the dog must be barking.
So we will add additional dog bark. Good. We can have more. So yes, because they're all very florid, and then Clunch is on a very different level, which I quite like liking, and of course it comes with this delightful suggestion. So we've got nighttime sounds that we're playing with here. I don't know if we have owls or other birds of the night, crickets, that kind of thing. I think the dog is going to have to be just someone doing a very bad dog impression. I feel that's important for the tone of the piece, but others can disagree. We could always get dog barking. Any thoughts on this as an opening? The question is the proverb supposed to be sung, or is that supposed to be what do we think that's doing there?
Well, there's a bit where, there's a song coming up for all of the characters that are on stage. So these are, I'm guessing, Antic, Frolic, and Fantastic originally probably are three boy actors who can sing. But sorry, I should let someone else talk.
No. I don't know if others were waving. Who was? I wasn't looking. I was looking in a book. Terrible habit of mine.
How dare you? How dare you?
I know. I'll stop it at once. I'll never look at a book again. Any other thoughts?
Well, it's sort of like you have to have the sound. If you're doing this as an audio adaptation, you need footsteps. I think, like, sort of maybe being clumsy sort of footsteps in the wood, because otherwise you wouldn't know where they're stepping. Or obviously they're talking about lose our way in the wood and stuff, but you need soundscapes.
Leafy footsteps, occasional snapping twigs. Yep. Well, the Foley could have a lot of fun with that one. Did we? Yes, because we got the reference to the tune of "Oh Man in Desperation." I don't know if we have a tune anywhere of. I don't know whether we have the tune of "Old Desperation." Man in Desperation. Liza. Muted at present.
It might be. It's worth looking at, I guess.
I think there is a tune that goes with Three Merry Men, so that's that. But that's not "Oh Man in Desperation," I think. But I could be wrong on that point. I will look that up further. Okay, letters. Any other additional thoughts? Otherwise, so far relatively straightforward. It gets more complicated as we go on, but I thought I'd just some low balls there. So we have enter Madge. Eric, you fancy being Madge? I'm sure you do. There we go. Let's everyone else remain as you are as we encounter these Madge and old woman. Yes, we're crossing a threshold, so that's door opening interior. Lovely. Okay.
Oh, also, does Madge have like a sort of walking stick or something? And in my head, she does, but anyway.
That might just lead to levels of hell that in the end in the Foley work that I kind of want. Maybe a roaring fire, that'd be quite nice. Yes, and we're coming up to the pudding of my own making. It's an interesting question what noise the pudding makes. Okay, anyway, enter Madge, or effectively they enter to Madge, an old woman.
Welcome, Clunch, and good fellows all that with my goodman. That come with my goodman. For my goodman's sake, come on, sit down. Here's a piece of cheese and a pudding of my own making.
Thanks, Gammer. A good example for the wives of our town.
Gamma, thou and thy goodman sit lovingly together. We come to chat and not to eat.
Well, masters, if you will eat nothing, take away. Come, what do we to pass away the time? Lay a crab in the fire to roast for lamb's wool? What, shall we have a game at trump or ruff to drive away the time? How say you?
This smith leads a life as merry as a king with Madge his wife. Sirrah Frolic, I am sure thou art not without some round or other. No doubt but Clunch can bear his part.
I'll think you me ill brought up to set to it when you will.
And they sing. I'll just ask Liza to read the song line. Because Zoom doesn't do songs in harmony.
When as the rye reached to the chin, and chop cherry ripe within, strawberries swimming in the cream, and schoolboys playing in the stream, then oh, my true love said, till that time come again, she could not live Oh.
Was that a genuine dog?
Indeed.
It was. Oh, how fabulous.
It might have been Olga's ringtone.
Yeah. Oh, well, I'm going to go with it. It's Ball. It's Ball speaking to us in his own language. So that was lovely. So yeah, we're singing in harmony. So that's something that the actors need to be. We need to put together, as also to have actors who can do it. Or singing in a round, so they don't necessarily have to go for full harmonies. It could be something quite simple, if desired. Any thoughts on the song? I like a nice straightforward round. I mean, it's a question of each individual character could have their own level of singing competence, really, couldn't they? So it's a matter of that would work quite nicely. So if Clunch is, shall we say, more enthusiastic than Abel, that might be quite fun, especially if they sort of leave him hanging at the end or something along those lines. Okay. Till that time come again, she could not live a maid. Antic, continue the scene.
This sport does well, but methinks, Gammer, a merry winter's tale would drive away the time trimly. Come, I'm sure you're not without a score.
I' faith, Gammer, a tale of an hour long were as good as an hour's sleep.
Look you, Gamma, of the giant and the king's daughter, and I know not what I have seen the day when I was a little one. You might have drawn me my love to you with such a discourse.
Well, since you be so importunate, my goodman shall fill the pot and get him to bed. They that ply their work must keep good hours. One of you go lie with him. He is a clean-skinned man, I tell you, without either spavin or wind gall. So I'm content to drive away the time with an old wives' winter's tale.
No better hay in Devonshire. On my word, Gammer, I'll be one of your audience.
And I another, that's flat.
Then I must to bed with the good man. Bona nox, Gammer. Good night, Frolic.
Come on, my lad, thou shalt take thy unnatural rest with me.
Yeah.
Rob, you're muted.
Yet this vantage shall
Yeah.
we have of them.
Sorry,
in the
I was just going to pause at that moment because that's the last we shall see of Antic and Clunch for a while.
Well, they're about to double into other parts.
Yes, and that's
which is
one
why
of those
we have to get them off stage, right?
Yes, so this is the first question of who do we make Clunch turn into, and who do we make Antic turn into further in the text as we go. Unfortunately, there are limits to how many people we can double the Fantastic Frolic and Madge in the rest of it, because they're watching the story unfold as Madge tells the story, and she tells her old wives' winter's tale, as told by an old wife. So yes, so they exit, and we start to hear Madge trying to tell this story. So Exeunt, Antic, and the Smith.
Yet this vantage shall we have of them in the morning, to be ready at the sight thereof as Sempor.
Now this bargain, my masters, must I make with you, that you will say hum and ha to my tale, so that I know you are awake.
Content, Gamma, that we will do.
Once upon a time, there was a king, or a lord, or a duke that had a fair daughter, the fairest that ever was, as white as snow and red as blood. And once upon a time, his daughter was stolen away, and he sent out all his men to seek out his daughter, and he sent so long that he sent all his men out of his land.
Who dressed his dinner then?
May either hear my tale or kiss my tail.
Well said. On with your tale, Gamma.
Oh, Lord, I quite forgot there was a conjurer, and this conjurer could do anything, and he turned himself into a great dragon and carried the king's daughter away in his mouth to a castle that he made of stone, and there he kept her, I don't know how long, till at last all the king's men went out so long that her two brothers went to seek her. Oh, I forget, he, I would say, has turned a proper young man to a bear in the night, and man in the day keeps by a cross that parts three several ways. And he made his lady run mad. Got to be Bones, who comes here.
Enter the two brothers.
Soft, Gamma. Here some come to tell your tale for you.
Let them alone. Let us hear what they will say.
Right, and before we hear what they say, we are into this the story has come alive moment. So I'm not so worried about the earlier Antic and the Smith exiting Footsteps door. That's all very straightforward. Madge telling a tale. Now I hadn't actually considered, because she says you will say hum and ha to my tale. I hadn't considered whether when Madge starts telling a tale, there's an awful lot of because there's lots of little pause points there, and she keeps forgetting the story, and maybe it's because they're actually doing too much, and that actually distracts them. So it might be that actually that's a lot more dynamic a speech, because it says Madge is telling this story, and she's telling it very badly. She's getting the details wrong. She forgets things, and that's why the story that we're about to hear doesn't quite make sense, because Madge tells the story wrong. So everything sort of gets mushed together as she tells it. But we've So I'm just wondering, do we indicate, or what do we do as a sound? The two brothers entering. Do we have some sort of magical sound effect? Do we have a whoosh, or do they just have two people coming in? How far do we go with a soundscape for the entrance of the two brothers?
Creaking door.
Well, it depends how literal we are, because of course they're telling a story. The story's coming alive. Is it just thuddingly literal? They're in a room and just lots of people come in, or is it actually whoosh, magical kingdoms created? I'll go to Eric, then Liza.
I was going to say you can have like a shimmer. A shimmer, is that a sound effect? Not really, but I mean like sparkly type noise.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is a magical tale, so it's important to have that. But also at the same time have like the creak of a floorboard or something to suggest that someone is actually in the room. Because that's the kind of play it is.
Liza.
Well, I mean, I think it's interesting. The kind of sound effect, as you say, the tale is being told in a cottage before the fire.
Mm.
And the brothers seem to be outdoors, they say, upon these chalky cliffs of Albion. So we, the listeners, are in a theater, Antic and Frolic and Fantastic and Madge are in a room, and then the tale is taking place outside. So this is a really exciting moment where you get to choose what you establish.
Mm.
Oh.
Olga.
So then there could be a sudden soundscape of winter outdoors, maybe contrasting with cozy indoors with the fire, and probably even switching between those two soundscapes from time to time. That would be very interesting to play with.
Yeah, I mean, it's because we've sort of got two worlds that we're looking at, because we'll be recording this live. Well, the plan is to record this live, of which there'll be a limited amount of stuff we could do with, but we could then in post have a post-production play around with the sound effects almost infinitely, and as how we mix it. There's a sort of halfway house for one, and all the options for another. I like the idea that the fire sound whooshes into outdoor wind, or something happens to do a sort of, or like the door opens and somewhere between what they're saying, and just suddenly you have this blast of wind, and they're all being blown over, and it's like, here comes someone to tell your tale for you, and they have to fight the incoming story. Desna, then Tom.
Or a window.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I was thinking of the sound of the fire getting louder and louder, and then becoming sort of the windy outdoor soundscape. But I also, now you said it, I like the idea of the door or the window blowing open as well, and perhaps a mixture of those. I'm not familiar with the rest of the story, but I don't know how. I don't know if, So some people are saying, hinting it's a magical story, but I don't. Sometimes the tinkly magical sounds can be a bit cheesy.
Yeah, I kind of want to
but
avoid.
Maybe that's what you're going for. So
Well, that's true actually. It is a
cheesy
play about
is good.
cliche. It is a play
in
about
which
cliche
case-
in the sense the cliches have changed over time, but the basic idea of some of them remains. Tom, then Liza.
Well, it seems very pantomime-esque, and therefore play it, straightforward, over the top. Or the other thing that came to mind was Noggin the Nog, with that type of tales where you have a storyteller, and then you cut to the two brothers out on the windy cliffs. But it's that type of it's that type of theatre that can be simple but very effective.
Yeah, Liza.
Just thinking about the vocabulary of sound. I'm thinking about this because the weekend before last I was doing sound effects for a play. Or the first weekend of this month. Sorry, what is time? Anyway.
Yes, and that was a year ago.
Yes, it really was. So it's sort of I mean, I like the idea of there being a magic twinkly sound in the vocabulary, but does that connote when elements of the story manifest into reality, or does that connote actual magic being used in the world of the story? Because we do have a sorcerer, and he does do some sorcery. We also have other characters who can do supernatural things. So it would be nice to have. Yeah, it's just sort of a question of knowing what if the director does the work of associating specific sounds with specific things, then in a way it's less work for the audience. So where do we tingle? Where?
Yeah, it's a question of what is the transition between the inverted commas real world of Madge telling the story and the play world within her story coming alive, and having a clear noise, because we will go back and forth between Madge and Frolic and Fantastic throughout the play, and so having. And it's the same way as within are doing it as a full production, making sure you've got some clarity between what is the play world and what is the play within a play world, and making sure that's clear visually as well. Eric.
I was gonna say, like, since this is, the chalky cliffs of Albion, aside from outdoor sound effects, you could have like something. I was gonna say English sound effects, but I don't know what like English instruments are. Maybe like aside from like Morris dancing or something, which is not good for like morale or sound, or I mean like audio. They have the bells and stuff. But like you could have bag. If you want to be really cheesy about it, but that would be bad, I think.
Yeah, we haven't even included the options of music at this stage, but we'll keep it relatively simple at this stage, and we've got options. I think we've asking the questions. We don't have to come up with all the answers now. Right, who hasn't? Who was dragged off by Clunch? Liza, you were dragged off, and Clunch is off, and Tom as well. So I'll ask Anna Rose if you could be the first brother, and I'll ask Tom to be second brother, and Liza if you could be Orestes coming up, please. So yes, they've seen the two brothers. They've walked on somehow. Something has happened. First brother, take it away.
Upon these chalky cliffs of Albion, we are arrived now with tedious toil, and compassing the wide world round about, to seek our sister, seek fair Delia forth, yet cannot we so much as hear of her.
Oh, fortune cruel, cruel and unkind, unkind in that we cannot find our sister, hapless in her cruel chance. Soft, who have we here?
And to Orestes at the cross stooping together.
Now, father, God be your speed. What do you gather there?
Hips and haws and sticks and straws and things that I gather on the ground, my son.
Hips and haws and sticks and straws? Why, is that all your food, father?
Yea, son.
Father, here's an alms penny from me, and if I speed in that I go for, I will give thee as good a groan or grey as ever thou durst.
And, father, here is another alms penny from me, and if I speed in my journey, I will give thee a palmer's staff of ivory and a scallop shell of beaten gold.
Was she fair?
Aye, the fairest for white, and the purest for red, as the blood of the deer or the driven snow.
Then hark well and mark well my old spell. Be not afraid of every stranger, start not aside at every danger. Things that seem are not the same, blow a blast at every flame, for when one flame of fire goes out, then come your wishes well about. If any ask who told you this good, say the white bear of England's wood.
Brother, heard you not what the old man said? Be not afraid of every stranger, start not aside for every danger. Things that seem are not the same, blow a blast at every flame. If any ask who told you this good, say the white bear of England's wood.
Well, if this do us any good, well fare the white bear of England's wood.
Exeunt the two brothers.
Now sit thee here and tell a heavy tale, sad in thy mood and sober in thy cheer. Here sit thee now, and to thyself relate the hard mishap of thy most wretched state. In Thessaly I lived in sweet content, until that fortune wrought mine overthrow. For there I wedded was unto a dame that lived in honour, virtue, love, and fame. But Sacripant, that cursed sorcerer, being besotted with my beauteous love, my dearest love, my true betrothed wife, did seek the means to rid me of my life. But worse than that, he with his chant and spells did turn me straight into an ugly bear. And when the sun doth settle in the west, then I began to don my ugly hide. And all the day I sit, as now you see, speak in riddles all inspired with rage, seeming an old and miserable man, and yet I am in April of mine age.
Enter Venalia, his lady, mad, and goes in again.
Ah, see where Venalia, my betrothed love, runs madding all enraged about the woods, all by his cursed and enchanting spells.
Yes, and there we're going to pause. So, there are several little issues here. I'm tempted to make a slight tweak, either a repetition or a slight moving of some of Madge's lines, just to reiterate or reset the man keeps by a cross that parts three several ways. Just when we reach Orestes at the cross, that maybe we either Madge repeats her line from earlier, or we tweak it slightly so that we really get that sense of geography. Because the problem with Madge's storytelling at the beginning is a lot of stuff comes at you. So I'm tempted to suggest that actually she even says two brothers went to seek her, and they say, "Oh, who comes here?" And then we redistribute the other stuff she forgot as Orestes comes on. Now there's lots of issues with potentially doing that, but I do think setting the place and connecting the listener's mind with who Orestes is at this point is quite important, because it's come by in passing very quickly. And it may not connect too much. That's a thought in my mind at the moment. Other thoughts in the room? There are other things to go in. Liza and Eric.
Just that there seemed to be okay, so the second brother and first brother offer to give Orestes things if they succeed in their mission. And Orestes seems to then have a magical knowledge of what their mission is, or there are some missing lines. And that could be solved by giving one of the brothers, "If I speed in that I go for, that is to find our dear sister," or something like that, to have them mention it.
Well, possibly. I mean, there are reasons why Orestes knows their thing. The audience don't know that yet, but there is a reason why he would know already. So it's not technically a plot hole. That isn't to say there aren't missing lines or there aren't. Things.
I mean, I know it's not a plot hole, but from an audience point of view, maybe it's unclear. Who knows?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a question because, of course, in a sense, it's all very generic. You go to the random person at the crossroads and he tells you a riddle, and that helps you in your journey. In that sense, but yeah, where was the bit you were suggesting that again, so I can make a note, that I could just watch this video again later.
The two lines that "Father, here is an alms penny for me," and "Father, here is another alms penny for me." Those two bits.
Exposition ? Occasional extra exposition is not a bad thing. Eric.
What I was going to say is that it's very useful that the brothers just repeat what the other person said. Like the first brother goes, "Yeah, we're here to seek our sister, and we cannot find, so cannot we so much as hear of her." And then the second brother goes, "Oh, cruel, unkind, but we cannot find our sister, in case you didn't know who is missing." Yeah. And then Orestes also, when there's some interesting stuff about white bears and white horses and stuff that is mentioned.
Yeah, I like the fact they do repeat what Orestes says, but they don't quite repeat all of it. There's a couple of lines missing. I don't know whether that's because they just didn't bother printing it, or because, when someone tells you a really long, complicated rhyming thing, you don't always remember all of it. I mean, I can't remember what film I was watching where someone had to do exactly this. You must remember exactly what... Oh, it was one of the Sinbad films. And it was this thing. So here is the thing you must tell to the genie. The genie tells you this thing. And he's going, "I wouldn't remember that. No chance. They're all going to die at the end of the film because they're clear. So it's one of it's one of those conventions. You get told one of these things. Tom, were you waving? You're muted if you were.
Forgive me. I was to agree with you. Orestes seems to be the noble soul, so I think he needs to have a better introduction. Because. The nobility of the slighted and the So I think I don't know the rest of the play, but he seems to be very important.
Yes, he is important. It's also all sort of a lie. But that's to do with Madge getting the story confused later on. So it doesn't matter at this stage. I think that's absolutely right. And it's this thing of, how bear do we want the voice to be as well? Because there's this is a guy who turns into a bear. So I'm wondering whether he should be quite a growly voice. It's a shame because that kind of voice I'd want to be the same as whoever's playing Clunch, but never mind. It's a bit too early for Clunch to come straight back on again, even with a slightly different voice. Eric?
Yeah, but then, I feel like if you make the distinction between his human voice and then his bear growl, whatever, it might be more effective. But then, I don't know, also because you could convey his weight, his weight in terms of his presence, not his physical weight, sort of fat or whatever, or thin, whatever. You could convey that through the weight of his footsteps, for example, or the speed of his footsteps, if he has any footsteps, because he's a bear. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just intrigued by this because there's so much repetition. And it's like, don't forget this. It's like the sort of Dorothy thing of clicking your heels and stuff and red shoes and that kind of.
And then we have again, it's someone who gets a passing mention who is important to the plot later on. Venalia, his lady, mad and goes in again. So it's literally someone just comes on, and straight off again, which is fine in a sense because he immediately explains who it is. But we need to decide what the oral what Venalia runs madding sounds like. All enraged.
This sounds like the sort of thing that when it was staged, that's a role for a dancer or some kind of physical performer, because she never says anything, I don't think, Venelia.
No. It is a slight problem for us later on in the play.
It actually says that she runs on, screams, and that's her dialogue. That's the only dialogue.
That to be fair is my footnote. That's not authentic. It is, and this play does have a lot of this sort of random people wandering on and wandering straight back off again. Olga.
Liza saying that it was the role was probably originally supposed for a dancer made me think that in our audio world it could be meant for a singer, and then she could vocalize something without words. Just sing a vocal.
Yeah.
Vocalizing.
So, I mean, it's a question of the madding, all enraged. So it's not a happy song. It's stuff. Eric.
I like the way you express happy versus not happy.
That's my rage grr. That's what that was.
Yep. No, I keep thinking about the pudding now, because obviously the pudding, I feel like it has to have a squelch sound, sort of a good
the pudding
squelch
from earlier.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a real question whether Gamma delivers horrible food earlier, because when the pudding of my own making, and it's just thank you. Let's not eat that. Let's talk and do something else. So he could just literally be thunk squelch in the most disgusting way.
I mean, they were lost in the freezing cold wood. How bad would the food have to be for them to turn it down?
Yeah. If it was a live theatre show, it would literally be a cannonball type thing. It would just be kung, and it would make a massive noise. I think for audio, it will have to just be the most revolting squelch Swarthega can make. I think that's the way it's got to be. Anyway, we dance around, but yeah, we can do that. Other thoughts as the story continues?
Also, I'm like the person comes on with just now the next character comes on with a pot of honey. I don't know how you would convey that in audio terms.
I will find out in a moment whether that's actually an issue or not. I don't think we need to. I suspect it will be fine, but it is a good point. How do you depict someone coming on with a pot of honey without sort of just going humming or something. I think Olga.
By giving him a honey voice,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Right, let us go on. And Desna, I think, could you be Lampriscus with the pot of honey? But I think it's Orestes still has three lines or 2 lines, or some lines to basically tell the audience who you are, which is great. It saves us a lot of problems. People do nicely explain who people are most of the time, which is very helpful.
But here comes Lampriscus, my discontented neighbour. How now, neighbour, you look toward the ground as well as I. You muse on something.
Neighbour, on nothing but on the matter I so often move to you. If you do anything for charity, help me. If for neighbourhood or brotherhood, help me. Never was one so cumbered as is poor Lampriscus. And to begin, I pray receive this pot of honey to mend your fare.
Thanks, neighbour. Set it down. Honey is always welcome to the bear. And now, neighbour, let me hear the cause of your coming.
I am, as you know, neighbour, a man unmarried, and live so unquietly with my 2 wives that I keep every year holy the day wherein I buried them both. The first was on St. Andrew's Day, the other on St. Luke's.
And now, neighbour, you of this country say your custom is out. But on with your tale, neighbour.
By my first wife, whose tongue wearied me alive and sounded in my ears like the clap of a great bell, whose talk was a continual torment to all that dwelt by her or lived nigh her, you have heard me say I had a handsome daughter.
True, neighbour.
She it is that afflicts me with her continual clamours, and hangs on me like a burr. Poor she is, and proud she is, as poor as a sheep new shorn, and as proud of her hopes as a peacock of her tail well grown.
Well said, Lampriscus. You speak it like an Englishman.
As cursed as a wasp, and as forward as a child new taken from the mother's teat. She is to my age as smoke to the eyes, or as vinegar to the teeth.
Holily praised, neighbour. As much for the next.
By my other wife, I had a daughter so hard favoured, so foul and ill-faced, that I think a grove full of golden trees and the leaves of rubies and diamonds would not be a dowry answerable to her deformity.
Well, neighbour, now you have spoke, hear me speak. Send them to the well for the water of life. There they shall find their fortunes unlooked for. Neighbour, farewell.
Farewell, and 1,000.
And exit Aristus.
And now goeth poor Lampriscus to put in execution this excellent counsel.
And they exit, leaving us with the framing story.
Why, this goes round without a fiddling stick. But do you hear, Gamma? Was this the man that was a bear in the night and day?
Aye, this is he. And this man that came to him was a beggar and dwelt upon a green. Soft. Who come here? Oh, these are the harvestmen, Tenta, when they sing a song of mowing.
Oh, ye that lovely lovers be, pray you come for me, pray you for me. Lo, here we come a sowing, and sow sweet fruits of love in your sweet hearts. Well may it prove. And then they exit again. Literally, the harvestmen just walk on and walk off again. This is a pattern you may notice in this play. So that's where we basically need the entire company to sing in lusty harvestmen who are all thinking about a sowing. So it's all. There's a subtext there. I don't know if you noticed it, but yeah, we've just had a quest set up. So we've got 2 quests effectively. We got the quest to find the sister by the 2 brothers, and we have a quest to find get to the 2 daughters to the water of life. It's not a proper quest, that one, because it's probably just around the corner. But it's yes, we've got Orestes tells the 2 brothers a random bit of verse, and because he's just his next door neighbour, he just tells Lampriscus what to do. I mean, he's much more helpful to his neighbour. He just says, "Yeah, just go to the well. It's fine. That'll sort out your slightly misogynistic problems that you have." It is the that is one of the big problems of the text. I don't think there's much we can do about it. But thoughts on the room as to massaging that, but it's sort of baked in, really. But those are the kinds of stories that people told is the best gloss I can put on that at this time. Will the two brothers meet the two sisters at any point? I don't know if that's precisely how they resolve that. I think they end up with two completely other separate people. So sadly, it's not as neat and tidy as that. Okay, so yeah, we've got Big Company song. We have to again decide when we return to the framing device with Frolic and Madge. Do we have a specific type of sound effect or music cue that is telling us that that's happening? I don't think we need to worry about the pot of honey. I don't think. I mean, presumably it's a bribe for the bear to be helpful. But was it actually mentioned in the text? Did he actually bring anything up? Did he actually bring the honey up? Did I just miss that?
Yes,
Yeah.
he does.
Yes. Yeah, so maybe at some point... oh, yes, I pray receive this pot of honey. So, clunk, as pot of honey is put down. There we are. And maybe Orestes can do some honey-eating action. I don't know. I'll leave that down to the individual actor. Okay, we now have the question of our next scene, and there are no official scenes in this because it all sort of flows into itself. Is we have Juanabango with his two-handed sword and Booby the clown. Though the name of the clown does shift depending on your and there may be two entirely different clowns in this, but in this version they're both called they're both the same person and they're both called Booby. You can turn your calculators around now. Right, let's just Gamma says, what is he? And Madge says, oh, this is one that's going to be the conjurer, let him alone. Hear what he says. Who wants to try Juanabango? Olga, do you fancy being Juanabango? There we are. It's yeah, he really goes for it. I think is the best description of him. And Eric, you can be Booby. Why not be Booby? I'll say yeah.
Aye, Captain.
Okay, so fantastic imagine set him up, and Juanabango, take it away.
Now by Mars and Mercury, Jupiter and Janus, Sol and Saturnus, Venus and Vesta, Pallas and Proserpina, and by the honor of my house, Polymacaroe Placidus. It is a wonder to see what this love will make silly fellows adventure, even in the wane of their wits and infancy of their discretion. Alas, my friend, what fortune calls thee forth to seek thy fortune among brazen gates, enchanted towers, fire and brimstone, thunder and lightning? Beauty, I tell thee, is peerless, and she precious whom thou affectest. Do oft these desires, good countryman, good friend, run away from thyself, and so soon as thou canst, forget her, whom none must inherit but he that can monster tame, labours achieve, riddles absolve, loose enchantments, murder, magic, and kill conjuring, and that is the great and mighty Juanabango.
Hark you, sir, hark you. First know I have here the flirting feather, and have given the parish the start for the long stock. Now, sir, if it be no more but running through a little lightning and thunder, and riddle me, what's this? I'll have the wench from the conjurer if you were 10 conjurers.
I have abandoned the court and honourable company to do my devour against this sour sorcerer and mighty magician. If this lady be so fair as she's said to be, she's mine, meus mea meum, in contemptum omnium grammaticorum.
Oh, falsum Latinum, the fair maid is minum cum appertinamtibus gibletis and all.
If she be mine, as I assure myself the heavens will do somewhat to reward my worthiness, she shall be allied to none of the meanest gods, but be invested in the most famous stock of Juanabango, Polymacaroe Placidus, my grandfather, my father, Pergo Polineo, and my mother Dionera de Sardinia famously descended.
You hear, sir, had not you a cousin that was called Gustard Sirides?
Indeed, I had a cousin that sometime followed the court, unfortunately, and his name was Augustus Ceridis.
Oh, Lord, I know him well. He's the knight of the Neat's feet.
Oh, he loved no capon better. He hath oftentimes deceived his boy of his dinner. That was his fault, good Augustus Ceridis.
Come, shall we go along?
And re-enter Orestes.
Soft, here is an old man at the cross. Let's ask him the way thither. Ho, you gaffer, I pray you, tell where the wise man the conjurer dwells.
Where that earthly goddess keepeth her abode, the commander of my thoughts, the fair mistress of my heart.
Fair enough and far enough from thy fingerings, son.
I will follow my fortune after mine own fancy, and do according to my own discretion.
Give something to an old man before you go.
Father, methinks a piece of this cake might serve your turn.
Cake? Yea, son.
Juanabango giveth no cakes for alms. Ask of them that give gifts for poor beggars. Fair lady, if thou wert once shrined in this bosom, I would buckle thee. Haratantara!
Exit Juanabango.
Father, do you see this man? You little think he'll run a mile or two for such a cake or pass for a pudding. I tell you, Father, he has kept such a begging of me for a piece of this cake. Whew. He comes upon me with a superfantile substance and the poison of the earth, but I know not what he means. If he came to me thus and said, "My friend Booby," or so, I could spare him a piece with all my heart. But when he tells me how God hath enriched me above all fellows with a cake, he makes me blind and deaf at once. Yet, Father, here's a piece of cake for you, as hard as the world goes.
And gives a cake.
Thanks, son, but list to me. He shall be deaf when thou shalt not see. Farewell, my son. Things may so hit, thou mayst have wealth to mend thy wit.
Farewell, Father, farewell, for I must make haste after my two-hand sword that is gone before.
And they exit. Yeah, there's an ongoing thing. Orestes here is basically the permanent fixture for this little sequence. This is sort of the end of this opening gambit of essentially this is basically the same quest, which is that he is after the beauteous maiden who is being taken by the terrible sorcerer, and of course is the same person the two brothers are hunting for. And of course, if you want to get something out of Orestes, you've got to give him something. It's a clear exchange thing, and in this case, it's a cake. And I do wonder, yet father, here is a piece of cake for you as hard as the world goes. It's the same cake from the cottage earlier. It's whatever the Madge just cooked up. So I wonder whether Booby and maybe that's Antic has come back again as Booby here. I'm thinking on a doubling front now of someone who's encountered the cooking who's making a. I'm liking that. I wasn't going to do that as a doubling, but I'm sort of liking Antic into Booby. Eric.
I have two things to say. One, I think the cake is one of those, like, sort of, it's probably circular, so like it would be something that he could just wrap on the table, and like you would be able to hear it because it's so hard and inedible.
It'd be some sort of hardtack kind of thing. I mean, if we were talking about this as a real universe, it's that kind of thing you would have.
Yeah. And I think like Juanabango's like entrance thing, like in my head, it was basically like music from like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, like that kind of thing.
My thought for him was it was like he just needs a really terrible trumpet cue. I mean, it's like he makes Booby go on ahead and go because he thinks he's the great knight. I mean, he's positively coming on with coconut halves going. He's that ridiculous. I am a knight. Look at my big sword. Which is in no way compensation for something inadequate about my personality. That kind of figure. And again, even though we'd be recording this live primarily for audio, I do think that he almost needs cardboard armor. I almost feel that he needs that sort of visual ridiculousn's going with him, and I think it's all in the. I mean, the text is so delicious. Oh, falsum Latinum. There's some really nice little.
I think it's
little
O falsum Latinum. The fair maid is minum.
Oh yes. No, we've had this conversation before. Other things. I'd say, in a sense, it's the same. It's the same place. We're still at the cross, basically, crossroads, and Juanabango doesn't offer anything, so he doesn't get anything. Booby does. He gets a clue. He gets a clue to what's going to happen to him. He shall be deaf when thou shalt not see. It will come to pass later on. There is that. And then, I say, the scene shifts without Madge, or I think we might need to say possibly put a Madge. I've just written Marge. One-liner, just setting up what comes next, possibly, or something. Or Frolic will say, who's the guy in the wizard's outfit, kind of thing. I mean, we need to find something in period that would work. Other thoughts before we move into Sacropant? Eric.
I kind of want to set this in the Wild West. Because it would work, him walking into a saloon. But I don't know, maybe that's just me.
We could definitely go for different cliche genre tropes. I'd definitely go for that. Okay. Who should we go for? Who's not done anything for a little while? Anna Rose, could you be Sacropant? I think. And Tom, can you be Delia? Coming up with a pot. And I will be the friar, because I don't think he really says anything. Okay. Enter Sacropant in his study.
The day is clear, the welkin bright and grey. The lark is merry and records her notes. Each thing rejoiceth underneath the sky. But only I, whom heaven hath in hate, wretched and miserable Sacropant. In Thessaly was I born and brought up. My mother Mero hight, a famous witch, and by her cunning I of her did learn to change and alter shapes of mortal men. There did I turn myself into a dragon, and stole away the daughter to the king, fair Delia, the mistress of my heart, and brought her hither to revive the man that seemeth young and pleasant to behold, and yet is aged, crooked, weak, and numb. Thus by enchanting spells I do deceive those that behold and look upon my face. But well may I bid youthful years adieu.
Enter Delia with a pot sound effect in her hand.
See where she comes from, whence my sorrows grow. How now, fair Delia, where have you been?
At the foot of the rock for running water, and gathering roots for your dinner, sir.
Ah, Delia, fairer art thou than the running water, yet harder far than steel or adamant.
Will it please you to sit down, sir?
Ay, Delia, sit and ask me what thou wilt. Thou shalt have it brought into thy lap.
Then, I pray you, sir, let me have the best meat for the King of England's table, and the best wine in all France, brought in by the fairest knave in all Spain.
Delia, I am glad to see you so pleasant. Well, sit thee down. Spread, table spread, meat, drink, and bread. Ever may I have whatever I crave, when I am spread, meat for my black cock and meat for my red.
Enter a friar with a chine of beef and a pot of wine.
Here, Delia, will you fall too?
Is this the best meat in England?
Yea,
What is it?
a chine of English beef, meat for a king and a king's followers.
Is this the best wine in France?
Yea,
What wine is it?
a cup of neat wine of Orleans that never came near the brewers in England.
Is this the veriest knave in all Spain?
Yea,
What, is he a friar?
yea, a friar indefinite, and a knave infinite.
Then, I pray ye, Sir Friar, tell me before you go, which is the most greediest Englishman?
The miserable and most covetous usurer.
Hold thee there, friar.
Exit friar.
But soft, who have we here? Delia, away, begone.
Enter the two brothers.
Delia, away, for beset are we. But heaven or hell shall rescue her from me.
And they exit. And we'll just briefly pause. Yeah, this is where we go a full Disney sound effect sorcerer, isn't it? It really is. Woo, spread, table spread, woo, sound effect build, and phoomf, friar. As the friar is basically seems to be a visual thing mostly. I'm wondering whether he just needs to be sighing and grunting because he's supposed to be a various knave. So he just goes all the time. I'm just wondering whether we need to add friar noises. I don't know what noises friars usually make, but of course that's the joke, isn't it? Ha ha! The various knave in all Spain. It's a friar. That's hilarious. I don't know how much that's going to land. But yeah, we've got this S sound effects there. And of course, the brothers are coming for her, so she must run away. Enter two brothers, probably footsteps. And it's a question, really, of it says enter Sacropant in his study. Is how much, is it in a castle? Where is this study? How does the study function? How, I don't know how they're entering there. Liza, then Eric.
Actually, I think Eric had his hand up first.
Oh, it's fine. You've got the ball now.
Okay. In a theater of the period, this would be a really nice. The Sacropant study would be a really nice use for the Discovery Chamber, I think, and it also, by drawing the curtain of the chamber, it also lets him disappear very quickly. I feel like at the beginning, when the brothers enter while Madge is telling the story, if we have a wind whoosh there, we can also make use of a wind whoosh for Sacropant's disappearance.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like there's room for that. I mean, it's an interesting question actually how it would have been done originally, because I'm just trying to think what the. This is a Queen's Men play, 'cause then it's mostly on tour. So it creates all sorts of interest. Anyway, that's not what we're here to do. I'll worry about that another time. I was getting books out again. It worries Eric. So Eric.
Hey, I have lots of books. You just never let me get them out. That just sounds wrong, but anyway. Because they're dictionaries. Yeah. Yeah, what I thought the line about in his study, I thought they meant sort of studying rather than in his study, as in like location wise, because otherwise that becomes very complicated for like sort of indoors and outdoors soundscapes type things, I think. But I guess it's a choice you can make. I mean, yeah.
I mean, that's a good point, actually. Yes, he is sort of in contemplation, so I suppose you could take it in that sense perfectly well. Tom?
And it feels a bit like La Belle La Bête, the Beauty and the Beast.
Yes, if we were filming it, we could do this bit in black and white.
I love that film.
I've got Vi in my head at the moment, visually, with some of these bits and pieces. Eric again.
Yeah, there is a different film that made animation. I mean, most of this could be animation actually, but anyway, the sort of spread meat, drinking bread. I don't know how you would do that to like sort of convey that aside from the song itself. Would you just like sort of have the sound of plates and like the pouring of wine? Or how would you do that?
I think we just go for generic magic whoosh and take it as read, and then just go ooh, reactions. I think reactions carry on.
Forgive me. I think it's the power of the incantation. I think the character themselves has a very powerful incantational voice in that sense, and that sets everything up.
Okay, we're almost at the end of what we might call the first movement of this play. As we're almost at the end of sort of setting up our stall of one of these major plots before we get sidetracked by another plot in a bit. So who's free to be a brother? I think everyone's sort of free. Sacripant's not free. Liza and Desna, I think you're free. So Liza, first brother. Desna, second brother. Tom, you can be the echo. It's a that's a fun one.
Brother, was that not that Delia that did appear? Or was it but her shadow that was here?
Sister, where art thou? Delia, come again. He calls, that of thy absence doth complain. Call out, Calipha, that she may hear, and cry aloud, for Delia is near.
Near?
Near? Oh, where? Hast thou any tidings?
Tidings?
Which way is Delia then? Or that? Or this?
Or this?
And may we safely come where Delia is?
Yes.
Brother, remember you the white bear of England's wood? Start not aside for every danger, be not afeard of every stranger. Things that seem are not the same.
Brother, why do we not then courageously enter?
Then, brother, draw thy sword and follow me.
Enter Sacripant the Conjurer. It lightens and thunders. The second brother falls down.
What, brother, dost thou fall?
Aye, and thou too, Calipha.
First brother falls down.
Adeste Demonas.
Enter two Furies.
Away with them, go carry them straight to Sacripanto's cell, there in despair and torture for to dwell.
Exit Furies with the two brothers.
These are Thenori's sons of Thessaly, that come to seek Delia, their sister, forth. But with a potion I to her have given, my arts have made her to forget herself.
And stage direction that I can't read in my version.
Removes the turf and shows a light in a glass.
Yes.
See here the thing which doth prolong my life. With this enchantment I do anything. Until this fade, my skill shall still endure, and never none shall break this little glass. But she that's neither wife, widow, nor maid, then cheer thyself. This is thy destiny, never to die, but by a dead man's hand.
And exit Sacripant. There's a lot going on in this scene. Some of which is very straightforward. Brothers come on, they talk to an echo, that's fine. We can decide whether the echo, we allied the sound is into a yiz kind of thing, or whether the echo just gets annoyed and just goes, yes! Which is my preferred option. He just shrugs. I mean, much of this is actually quite straightforward to do. Sacripant, evil laugh, lightning strike. Brother goes, ah! And the other says, what does thou fall down? So that's all sort of straightforward. We might add a translation into the Latin for the two Furies, and then away with them, my pretties, kind of thing. Take them to my cell. So actually, it's not as most of that is not actually that difficult to do. It's actually you just throw the sound effects in and you just do it with gusto and you do lots of reactions. We then get to a very important stage direction that Madge will probably have to be given some sort of narrator role for, because removing a turf shows a light in a glass. There's just no way we can, act that out. It's a visual cue, and it's also very important. It's a big problem later on. This light in the glass is really important at the end of the play, and someone does a whole dance ballet with it later on. So it's quite important that we find a way of narrating that, and that's a definite narration bit that we need to create. Olga. Oh, you're
we can certainly beautify it with some sound effects, like the glass and something magical, some sort of magical tingling of the glass. But yeah, I agree. It would be wonderful to have a narrator, this old lady narrator, suddenly reappear to say this line. Yeah. And also I mentioned in the comment this. I highly recommend to find one of the Alexander Rose films, because they are so beautiful, and also the sound effects. And this villain is very much like our main villain of the folk tales. So yeah, you can find some beautiful analogies to play with. So just for your pleasure.
It's a really nice little bit, and it's a question of how over the top Sacripant gets as well, and how that plays. And again, this is not a subtle play. It is making fun of all of these things. And I say, much of this has come to us today. It's not come to us quite in the same way, but the analogues are there, and they are often international as well, even if there are, say, differences, but the similarities are there as well. So there's a lot to play with. Anything I haven't picked up on there that we might need to throw in or throw out, for that matter? Eric?
I feel like you need a thump for the first brother falling over, or is it the second brother?
Well, they both fall at some point, so yeah, landing.
You need a thump or a thud sounds. Like
it might get taken over by the thunderbolt sound anyway, and the reaction noise. Yeah.
True that.
That's one of the heavy questions of the mix. Okay, we've got a little bit more in with Orestes at his cross again. And this is the thing, is if this was a live play, you can just see Orestes is the person who has to do the stage setting of the cross every time. He just walks on, plonks the cross back down, shrugs, and gets on with the scene. There's something sort of nicely Heath Robinson about it all that I quite like. But obviously we wouldn't have that. Maybe there are crows always cawing at the cross, or because it's a crossroads, they're often associated with dark danger. So maybe actually, if we've got there's always the same sort of sound effect background that's there. Crows at the cross ? Okay. Liza, you can go back to being Orestes. I think that seems reasonable. Olga, could you be Eumenides?
Tell me just time, when shall I Delia see? When shall I see the lodestar of my life? When shall my wandering course end with her sight? Oh, but I view my hope, my heart's delight. Father, Godspeed, if you tell fortunes, I pray, good father, tell me mine.
Son, I do see in thy face thy blessed fortune work apace. I do perceive that thou hast wit. Beg of thy fate to govern it. For wisdom governed by advice makes many fortunate and wise. Bestow thy alms, give more than all, till dead men's bones come at thy call. Farewell, my son. Dream of no rest, till thou repent that thou didst best.
Exit Orestes.
This man hath left me in a labyrinth. He biddeth me give more than all, till dead men's bones come at thy call. He biddeth me dream of no rest, till I repent that I do best.
And lies down and sleeps, which I don't know how important it is that we signify that. We can do with him snoring or something, but I don't know how important that is. We have now effectively moved into our next unit of action, as we've introduced Eumenides. Okay, he's also looking for Delia. Everybody's wants to find Delia. That's pretty much the thing. Eumenides, however, seems to be a more genuine hunter than someone like Juanabango, who is obviously the overly comic version. But yeah, his journey is going to be quite different, as it were. So, question mark, sleep or not? Because I think it might just not matter. He could just overhear the thing that is going to happen next. So, we have various people. So I'll ask Tom if you could be the church warden, signified as church. Eric, could you be Wigan? And Desna, could you be the sexton? Do we have a in your script? Hang on, let me just check.
Corybus.
Corybus, yes. Yes, we do have a Corybus. So I'm just checking different editions as to the interpretation of Corybus. That is fine. Who's free? Who was Eumenides? You were Eumenides.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll no, we need you to. You can't be Corybus because you'll talk to Corybus. Anna Rose, you be Corybus, please. And we'll see where we go. So, lots of people have entered. Stuff goes on. Wigan.
You may be ashamed, you horse and scold sexton and church warden. If you had any shame in those shameless faces of yours, to let poor man lie so long above ground unburied. I rot on you all that have no more compassion of a good fellow when he is gone.
What? Would you have us bury him, and to answer it ourselves to the parish?
Yeah, parish me no parishes. Pay me my fees and let the rest run on in the quarter's accounts. And put it down for one of your good deeds, in God's name. For I am not one that curiously stands upon merits.
You horse and sodden-headed sheep's face. Shall a good fellow do less service and more honesty to the parish? And will you not, when he is dead, let him have Christmas burial?
Peace, Corybus, as sure Jack was Jack, that the frolickst Branion amongst you, and I, Wigan, his sweet-sworn brother, Jack shall have his funerals, or some of them shall lie on God's dear earth for it, that's once.
Wigan, I hope thou wilt do no more than thou durst answer.
Sir, dare or dare not, more or less, answer or not answer, do this or have this.
Help! Help! Help!
And Wiggins sets upon the parish with a pikestaff. Eumenides awakes and comes to them.
Hold thy hands, good fellow.
Can you blame him, sir, if he takes Jack's part against this shake-rotten parish that will not bury Jack?
Why, what was that, Jack?
Who, Jack, sir? Who, our Jack, sir? As a good a fellow as ever trod upon neat's leather.
Look you, sir, he gave 19 mourning gowns to the parish when he died, and because he would not make them up a full 100, they would not bury him. Was not this good dealing?
Oh, Lord, sir, how he lies. He was not worth a halfpenny, and drunk out every penny. And now his fellows, his drunken companions, who have us to bury him at the charge of the parish. And we have many such matches. We may pull down the steeple, sell the bells, and thatch the chancel. He shall lie above ground till he dance a galliard about the churchyard. For Steveth Loach.
Sic argumentaris domine Loach, and we make many such matches. We may pull down the steeple, sell the bells, and thatch the chancel. In good time, sir, and hang yourself at the bell ropes when you've done. Domine opponens pre bono tibi hanc questionem. whether you have the ground broken or your pate's broken first. For one of them shall be done presently. To begin mine, I'll set upon your coxcomb.
Hold thy hands, I pray thee, good fellow, be not too hasty.
You Capin's face, we shall have you turned out of the parish one of these days, with never a tatter to your arse. Then you're in worse taking than Jack.
Faith, and he's bad enough. This fellow does but the part of a friend to seek to bury his friend. How much will bury him?
It's about some 15 or 16 shillings we'll bestow him honestly.
Aye, even thereabouts, sir.
Here, hold it then. And I have left me but one poor 3 halfpence. Now do I remember the words of the old man spake at the cross? Bestow all thou hast, and this is all, till dead men's bones come at thy call. Here, hold it.
Gives money.
And so farewell.
Pardon, all good be with you, sir.
Exit Eumenides.
Nay, you cormorants, I'll bestow 1 peal of Jack at mine own proper costs and charges.
You may thank God the long staff and the bilbo blade cross not your coxcomb. Well, we'll to the church stile and have a pot, and so trill.
And exit with Wigan.
Come now, let's go.
And they exit. Whoever was Fantastic and Madge previously, step forward. We have a couple of lines there.
But hark you, Gamma, methinks this Jack bore a great sway in the parish.
Oh, this Jack was a marvellous fellow. He was but a poor man, but very well beloved. You shall see anon what this Jack shall come to.
Enter the harvestmen, singing with women in their hands.
Soft, who have we here? Our amorous harvesters.
Aye, let us sit still and let them alone.
Lo, here we come a-reaping to reap our harvest fruit, and thus we pass the year so long, and never be we mute. And exit. It's the musical interlude that just keeps on giving. Some interesting things about this scene we've just had. I'm thinking just it's they're digging a grave. They're arguing over the expenses of who buries poor Jack. So we can have church bells going dong in the background. It's such a lovely petty squabble as well. It's not petty, I suppose, if it's your job to do the work and nobody ever pays you, but it was this guy who didn't have any money, and of course this play is constantly about giving something to someone. This is what Orestes does all the time. He wants payment for what he does, and then Eumenides is going to get something back because he gives money, and Fantastic. Madge promises later on that we will see more of that, and indeed we will. I think there's an interesting structural question here, is actually where we put this scene, because I'm just thinking that this scene is actually detachable. It doesn't have to go in here, and if we have a doubling issue that could be solved by slightly moving this scene, then actually that might be something we do, because we've already got the harvestmen coming on randomly as a space between scenes. So we've got a spacer there that is in place, if that's a thing. And I'm just thinking that might be a structurally helpful thing if we are doing some extreme doubling. That if I need to move my Eumenides, as it were, then I can, and maybe move that around. That might be a thing. I don't know if I need to do that, but it's just a thought that my brain is throwing in. Any other thoughts about this thing? It's one of these slightly detailed scenes where some of the patter and some of the stuff that they're saying might go over people's heads, but I think it resolves itself quite well, and with some work should come across okay. I don't think there's anything too much there we might need to do. The squabble is easy enough to do with people just going arg, slight clash of pikestaff, clonk, clank. I don't think there's anything there that's too difficult to get across. Shovels, I might need some shovel earth stuff.
Yeah, I don't know how much violence actually takes place. There's a lot of threatened violence, and then Eumenides steps between them quite often.
Yeah, I think it's sort of radio kind of stuff, and then he just steps over. Oi! I think that's fine. Eric.
Well, also the sound of like money being exchanged. So yeah.
Yes, we've got our standby money bags to just go at any point, and we can drop some coins. I mean, it's not an awful lot. Oh no, it's 15 or 16 shillings. I mean, that's a fair number of coinage. Depending on how you break that up. And yeah, we've got a very short. It is a shame. We might need to add to magic or the amorous harvesters, and they've got friends, because it is important that they come in hand. They've found someone to mate with, and they're not going to be mute. Presumably, I'm sure their noises will be quite amorous, and their friends. So that should be quite fun. Okay, I'm just looking ahead at the next chunk, which is quite chunky, and I think that might be a point where actually we will wind down rather than go forward. Can we do a nice, neat bit where we can then close off? Well, let's just see how far we get. Let's see how far we got before we wind up. Who was Juanabango earlier? You were. Yeah, we'll stick with who we were earlier. Tom, could you be the voice coming up? Otherwise, we'll stick with all the other everybody. Yeah, and return to be Delia, and we'll see how far we get. The two brothers come on. I may move them around, but let's see how far we get. Anyway, the harvestmen have exited.
Soft, who have we here?
Oh, this is a choleric gentleman. All you that love your lives, keep out of the smell of his two-hand sword. Now he goes to the conjurer.
Methinks the conjurer should put the fool into a juggling box.
Fee far from, he's the Englishman. Conquer him that can. Come for his lady bride to prove himself a knight and win her love in fight.
Enter Booby the clown.
Hoo-ha, Master Bango, are you here? Here you! You had best sit down here and beg an alms with me.
Hence, base cullion, here is he that commandeth ingress and egress with his weapon, and will enter at his voluntary whosoever saith no.
A voice and a fire of flame, and Juanabango falls down.
No.
So with that, they kissed and spoiled the edge of as good a two-hand sword as ever God put life in. Now goes Booby in spite of the conjurer.
Enter Sacripant the conjurer and two furies.
Away with him into the open fields, to be a ravening prey to crows and kites.
Juanabango is carried out by the two furies.
And for this villain, let him wander up and down, in naught but darkness and eternal night.
And strikes Booby blind.
Here hast thou slain Juan. Yes. Slashing knight, and robbed poor Booby of his sight.
Hence, villain, hence!
Exit Booby.
Now I have unto Delia given a potion of forgetfulness, that when she comes she shall not know her brothers. Lo, where they labour like to country slaves, with spade and matter from this enchanted ground. Now will I call her by another name, then never shall she know herself again, until that Sacripant hath breathed his last. See where she comes.
Enter Delia.
Come hither, Delia, take this gold. Here hard at hand two slaves do work and dig for gold. Bore them with this, and thou shalt have enough.
He gives her a goad.
Good sir, I know not what you mean.
She hath forgotten to be Delia, but not forget the same she should forget. But I will change her name. Fair Baron Cynthia, so this country calls you. Go ply these strangers, wench, they dig for gold.
Exit Sacripant.
Oh, heavens, how I am beholding to this fair young man. But I must pity these strangers to their work. Must ply these strangers to their work. See where they come.
And whoever was our last, the last two iterations of first and second brother, was it Liza and Desna? Yes.
Oh, brothers, see where Delia is.
Oh, Delia, happy are we to see thee here.
What tell you me of Delia? Prating swains, I know no Delia, nor know what you mean. Ply your work, or else you're like to smart.
Why, Delia, knowest thou not thy brothers here? We come from Thessaly to seek thee forth, and thou deceivest thyself, for thou art Delia.
Yet more Delia, then take this and smart.
Pricks them with the goad.
What, feign your shifts for you to deter your labour? Work, villains, work. It is for the gold you dig.
Peace, brother, peace. This vile enchanter hath ravished Delia of her senses clean, and she forgets that she is Delia.
Leave, cruel thou, to hurt the miserable. Dig, brother, dig, for she is hard as steel.
Here they dig and descry a light in a glees under a little hill.
Stay, brother. What hast thou descried?
Away, touch it not. 'Tis something that my lord hath hidden there.
She covers it again, re-enters Sancropant.
Well said. Thou pliest these pioneers well. Go get you in, you labouring slaves.
And they exit.
Come, Baron Cynthia, let us in likewise, and hear the nightingale record her notes.
And they exit. So we've got a section that is both complicated and quite simple at the same time. I'm tempted to change Delia's weapon of choice to a whip, just because I can do whipping sound effects. That might just read better. I mean, it's a bit more violent, but I quite like the idea that having been. I think the voice should be Sancropant's voice. Earlier, the voice that says no. I think we just that doesn't have to be voice generic. That could just be Sancropant shouting no. Two Furies again. I don't think they have to be terribly literal. The hissing sound effect for the blinding of Booby, lightning, etc. We've got shovels. We will need to add a little bit of additional exposition about digging up the glass under the little hill that we had earlier, but that's not too difficult actually, and that's mostly in the dialogue already, but we might overstate it. And again, as Olga said earlier, the glass needs its own special little sound music, little tinkly thing, glass thing there. So in a sense, it's very fiddly, but it's not actually that unclear. I think there's a lot there that sort of works, and makes sense in terms of getting information across. It just happens really quickly, and of course, Juanabango basically gets what he's he's turned up unprepared. He didn't give any money to arrest us earlier. He's got whacked, as it were. By the flame of fire, or a massive sound effect of a flame of fire. Thoughts. I'm doing a lot of talking. It's not supposed to be a monologue. Just in general. Yes, Desna.
The one thing that was puzzling me is when we have the second round of the Harvest Men been and gone, and Juanabango is back on the scene. Where are we? Because it's clear that he meets Sancropant in some way, but where?
I think this is the thing. Is this point of the story is a bit like just before we had the whole Sexton scene. It does feel like they're trying to attack the castle. That's my view of this. Is that these are the people who've gone to Sancropant's castle, because Juanabango is there to try and rescue the damsel, and that's sort of how I'm seeing it. But that's a good point actually. Where are we? I mean, to a degree we're everywhere and nowhere. That's the problem with this play, because it keeps changing and it keeps dancing around, and that's sort of another reason perhaps for moving the preceding scene, is that then we're still staying, broadly speaking, in this area of the story. and we don't necessarily need to set up the later plot line that will come to fruition in a bit. And the thing is, this is a question: how much do we want to confuse the audience? Because of course, part of the point of the story is the story's being told by someone who can't tell a story very well, and they keep getting it out jumbled and not quite right. So it's an interesting question about how much confusion is good confusion and how much is bad confusion. Desna, then Olga.
I think you want it to be confusing enough that people get that sense of, whoa, what's going on, but also make the audience feel clever enough that they can kind of see a little bit what's coming in the future to balance that sense of confusion. So I just think you can't go all out. And also the way the clues to what might be coming up would work visually are going to work really different are not going to work, or you'll need an alternative way of doing it in an audio
I think
production.
If we're putting a few more Madge cues in generally, I quite like the idea of basically taking everything she said at the beginning of the story and just it gets repeated later on, and just basically it's just, oh, I forgot, did I say this bit? You know, so that we're not necessarily making new dialogue up, but we're sort of repeating it, so that Madge does more storytelling. She's not really, she doesn't do that much storytelling. There's sort of just little interjections. I mean, it's a really helpful one of, when Hannah Bango comes on for the second time and he's going, keep out the smell of his two-hand sword. Well, of course, obviously, I don't think in the text it's mentioned as a stage direction. I don't know how explicitly he talks about it earlier, but it does feel like that's almost something we could have a version of that when he first appears as well, so that we're getting a description of him going forward. Olga.
Yeah, I'm afraid that confusion is unavoidable. We will have a good deal of confusion. But I like your idea about repeating something. So I feel like we do need a sort of a refrain between some parts, whether it's an audio clue for the audience to hear repeated, or just a couple of lines maybe from the storyteller that will keep them sort of in this world. Yes, that's the next part, and there's some similarity, there's some sort of repetition. That's what all folk tales always do. Yeah. And it's really good here too.
And it's also, we can use Frolic and Fantastic to ask questions and go, oh, is that the Conjurer again? Oh, it's him again. Is that, and so, it is that thing. This is actually unusual for us. We don't normally add. We might add the occasional additional name and a very occasional gloss. If someone gets stabbed and they don't properly say, I've been stabbed, which they usually do in these plays. But most of the time we're talking about what we're going to cut. And this is a genuinely different exercise in terms of deciding how chaotic a really chaotic story is supposed to be. Okay, we're going to stop there because we have basically run out of time. We're not going to get to the end. We will do a half session and more on this again sometime in the future to take out that final thing. But I might also just put together a slightly different script, already taking in some of these notes, and so we might do sort of the slow exploration, but then we might just run a slightly alternative edit. That might be the thing we do next time. But anyway, final thoughts. A lot of people have not encountered this play at all before, so I'd be quite interested, for those who haven't read this play before, your impressions of it, because we haven't let it flow and we haven't sort of really allowed it to breathe. In this very stop-starty way. Desna, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really enjoying it. Even though we are stopping and starting and not going through it, and we've got to stop and start because there's not enough of us to be to play all the characters. It's really fun, and I'm really intrigued to see where it goes next. I like very much this thing that keeps coming up this evening about the kind of its relationship to folk tales, and I think the more you can lean on that in an audio production, the more effective it will be. Like Olga was saying about like with oral storytelling, people will use those like little repetitions as hooks. So yeah, I think that'd be really good.
Yeah, and also, I mean, just because this is our immediate target is the audio version. Of course, the ideal is that we're in a position to do a full on stage show where the potential for the visual then explodes as well. And I think that's also a thing to always bear in mind is we're trying to build audiences as for these shows so that we can do the full on show, because I think this is one where even though a lot of what you might throw on stage must look a bit rubbish, it'll probably be really quite expensive to make the rubbish look rubbish and survive a run. This is the thing: you have to make these the sort of silliness needs to be more robust than it might immediately look. Liza, any final thoughts?
Well, just I'm encountering felicities and also difficulties. So it's very useful to hear it spoken again. Yeah, and I'm getting ideas, but a lot of them are visual ideas. So obviously that's
Put them away in a file for later. They will come in useful.
Yes, Robert. Anyway, it's Anna Rose. It's lovely to meet you and to see you. I hope you come back for more of these.
Yes. Any final thoughts, Anna Rose?
Oh, just thank you. I've really enjoyed reading it and also listening to how you unpack it, and just I've been absorbing your working style, and really enjoyed people's commentary, and it's a fun play. I liked what Tom said about the sort of pantomime-esque quality, and then also Liza, a lot of the ideas and what was coming up in my mind was visual, but I think it's an intriguing and generative constraint to think about doing an audio version, because then that forces you to translate the visual. So I really enjoyed listening to all of you and reading it.
Olga, I get you haven't been here for any of the earlier sessions. Any final thoughts?
It's my first encounter of this play, and yes, I absolutely enjoy the process, and I as Anna Rose, I'm all for this panto thing of this play. Yeah, it's just lovely. I'm very much excited to know what it ends up with.
Yes. It's interesting, yes, because now that it's becoming a reality as a project, there's part of me going, "Oh God, this is going to be complicated." So yeah, that's a good. We like a challenge. Tom, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I like the way some of the phrasing and almost rhyming. Sacropant's way with it into open field, and raving crows pray to crows and kites, and then you have nights and sight, and I think if you could find as a recurring theme a character who does, or two characters who speak in rhyme, I think that would be pleasant on the ear. And
yes,
and I like it very much. Yeah.
Yes, the rhyme is very playful all the way through as it's being used. I mean, it's a very playful text. It knows what it's doing when it's writing good verse and bad verse as well. Eric, any final thoughts?
Well, I was here for the previous two runs of this, or I think I was here for the second look, but I didn't really get the first look. Anyway, whatever. It's starting to remind me a lot of the Nutcracker, like the stage, I was going to say the stage musical, the ballet, because you've got that concept of like a framing device, and then obviously, just children that are coming for Christmas, and the whole giving of presents and stuff, which obviously in this case is three guys lost in the woods, which is not quite the same, but it's kind of that element of you've got the framing device interacting with the story as well. With the sort of surreal elements of the story. So I feel like it could be quite beautiful in a way, but you could make it also hilarious, depending on how you do it.
Yeah.
Or both.
Yeah, I see no. We can do all the things. I'm sure we can put them all in. Well, we've had a lot of fun once again. We will return to this to complete this initial exercise and maybe a little bit more at a future session. All that remains, thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye.